The poor little girl raised her hand and signed softly to the paralyzed Arab billionaire. "Don't take your medicine, you'll be fine." Everyone froze as the impossible began to unfold. Before we get into it, let's make this moment global. Leave a comment in your own language. The marble floors of the Al Rashid mansion gleamed under the afternoon sun, reflecting golden light through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Persian Gulf. Inside the master bedroom on the third floor, 33-year-old Khalid Al Rashid sat motionless in his custom wheelchair, his dark eyes fixed on the turquoise waters beyond the glass. His sharp jawline and refined features bore the weight of 18 months of suffering. 18 months since the racing accident that had stolen everything he loved about life. The room smelled of expensive cologne and antiseptic, a constant reminder of his dependence on others. Medical equipment lined one wall, monitors, an IV stand, and rows of amber prescription bottles that marked the passage of his days. Each morning brought the same routine: medications at dawn, physical therapy that yielded no progress, and the pitying looks of staff who once admired him as one of Dubai's most dynamic young entrepreneurs. "Mr. Al-Rashid, it's time for your noon medications," announced Marcus, his British nurse, entering with a silver tray. The 30-year-old medical professional had been with Khalid since the early days after the accident, his efficiency masking a growing concern that he kept to himself. Khalid didn't respond. He rarely did anymore. Speech required energy, and energy required hope, something that had drained from him like water through sand. His family's billion-dollar shipping empire now ran without him, managed by his uncle Faisal and a board of directors who sent quarterly reports he never read. What did numbers matter when you couldn't feel your legs? When every day was measured in pills and physical limitations, Marcus set the tray on the bedside table, arranging the usual collection: 2 blue capsules for pain, 3 white tablets for inflammation, 1 yellow pill for circulation, and the large green capsule that Dr. Hammond had added 6 months ago for neural support. Khalid took them mechanically, one by one, washing them down with mineral water from a crystal glass. "Your new household staff begins today," Marcus mentioned casually, organizing the empty cups. "Your cousin Amira hired them, a housekeeper and her daughter." Khalid's expression didn't change. Staff came and went. Some stayed weeks, others mere days. His bitterness drove them away like desert wind, scattering dust. He had stopped learning names months ago. 3 floors below, in the mansion's gleaming kitchen, Fatima Hassan clutched her daughter's small hand and tried to steady her racing heart. At 32, Fatima had learned to navigate hardship with grace, but the opulence surrounding her now felt overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers, silk curtains, marble everywhere. This was a world she had only glimpsed in magazines while cleaning other people's offices in Cairo. "Mama, it's so big," whispered 6-year-old Layla, her enormous brown eyes taking in the kitchen's restaurant-grade appliances and granite countertops that seemed to stretch forever. "Remember what we discussed," Fatima said softly in Arabic, kneeling to meet her daughter's gaze. "We must be very quiet and respectful. This is our new beginning, Habibti, our chance for a better life." Layla nodded solemnly. She was a peculiar child, too quiet, too observant, with an unsettling habit of staring at people as if she could see through their skin to something beneath. Other children in their Cairo neighborhood had called her strange, which was one of many reasons Fatima had leaped at this opportunity. The salary Amira al-Rashid offered was 3 times what she earned in Egypt, enough to send money home to her ailing mother, and maybe finally save for Layla's future. "The master of the house is unwell," explained Amira, an elegant woman in her 40s who swept into the kitchen with the confidence of old money. "My cousin Khalid suffered a terrible accident. He can be difficult, withdrawn. You'll mostly interact with his medical staff." She paused, studying Fatima's simple hijab and worn shoes. I hired you because you came highly recommended, and because, she glanced at Layla, I thought a child's presence might bring some light to this house. It's been too dark for too long. Fatima felt a flutter of worry. She'd been careful not to mention Layla's oddities in her interview. My daughter is very well behaved. She won't disturb anyone. See that she doesn't wander, Amira said firmly. The third floor is off limits except during cleaning hours, and even then, Marcus will supervise. Khalid values his privacy. The first week passed in a blur of learning routines. Fatima cleaned with meticulous care, desperate to prove her worth. The mansion had 12 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, a home theatre, an indoor pool, and a garage that housed 6 luxury cars gathering dust. Layla spent her days in the staff quarters, colouring in workbooks her mother bought, occasionally peeking out at the vast house with curious eyes. But children are explorers by nature, and rules are merely interesting challenges. It was on the 8th day, a Thursday afternoon, when Fatima was deep cleaning the second-floor library, that Layla slipped away. The child moved silently through hallways, drawn by something she couldn't name, a pull, a feeling, a voice without sound that called to her from above. She found the stairs to the 3rd floor and climbed. The door to Khalid's suite stood slightly ajar. Through it, Layla could hear low voices, Marcus speaking to someone about physical therapy schedules and medication adjustments. The little girl approached soundlessly, her small hand pushing the door open wider. Khalid sat by the window in his wheelchair, his back to the door. Afternoon light painted him in gold and shadow, making him look like a statue, beautiful and utterly still. Marcus was preparing the noon medications at the side table, his back turned as he counted pills. Layla stepped inside. Something happened then that she couldn't explain, even to herself. Looking at the man in the wheelchair, she felt a wave of sensation crash over her, pain that wasn't hers, sadness deeper than any ocean, and something else, something wrong, like touching a pot and knowing it would burn before feeling the heat. The feeling came from the green capsule in Marcus's hand. "Mr. Al-Rashid, let's begin," Marcus said, turning toward his patient. That's when he saw the child. "What are you—" Marcus started, surprise flashing across his face. But Layla was already moving forward, her small legs carrying her across the expensive carpet. She stopped directly in front of Khalid's wheelchair, her brown eyes locking onto his dark ones. Khalid stared at her, startled out of his usual stupor. No one approached him directly anymore. People kept their distance, addressed him from doorways, treated him like fragile glass or a wounded animal to be pitied from afar. But this child stood so close, he could see the golden flecks in her brown eyes. Layla raised one small hand, pointing at the tray of medications. Her voice, when it came, was soft but absolutely certain, the kind of certainty that only children possess before the world teaches them to doubt. "Don't take your medicine," she said in clear English, though Arabic was her first language. "You'll be okay." The room froze. Marcus stood paralyzed, pills in hand. Khalid's eyes widened, his lips parting in shock. For the first time in months, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt confusion, curiosity, and strangest of all, a tiny spark of hope he thought had died forever. "Layla!" Fatima's horrified voice came from the doorway. She discovered her daughter's absence and raced through the house in panic. "Ya Allah! I'm so sorry, Mr. Al-Rashid, sir, please forgive. How do you know?" Khalid's voice was rough from disuse, but he spoke directly to the child, ignoring everyone else. "How do you know what I'm feeling?" Layla tilted her head, studying him with those 2 old eyes. "I can see it," she said simply. "The hurt. And that," she pointed at the green capsule again, "that makes it worse, not better." "That's quite enough," Marcus said sharply, setting down the tray and moving toward Layla. "This child shouldn't be here. These are prescription medications from Dr. Hammond, specifically formulated for—" "What does the green one do?" Khalid interrupted, his gaze never leaving Layla's face. Marcus hesitated. "It's for neural regeneration. Dr. Hammond added it to your regimen 6 months ago. It's meant to—" 6 months ago, Khalid repeated slowly. His mind, dormant for so long, began to move. "I've been taking it for 6 months. Yes, and while we haven't seen the improvements we hoped for, I've gotten worse," Khalid said, and it was true. He realized it suddenly, sharply. 6 months ago, he'd had some sensation in his lower back, occasional tingles in his thighs. Now, nothing, just numbness spreading like frost. "I've gotten consistently worse since that medication started." "Correlation doesn't imply causation," Marcus said professionally, but something flickered in his eyes. Was it concern? Defensiveness? "Recovery isn't linear. You know this." Fatima had reached Layla now, grabbing her daughter's hand. "Please, sir, she's just a child. She doesn't understand medical—" "She understood something," Khalid said. His voice gained strength, authority returning like muscle memory. "She understood something no one else has said out loud." He looked at the green capsule on the tray, really looked at it, for the first time in months. "I want that tested," he said, "independently, not by Dr. Hammond." "Mr. Al-Rashid, that's highly irregular," Marcus protested. "Dr. Hammond is one of the finest neurologists in—" "Then he won't mind a second opinion." Khalid's jaw set in a line that his business rivals would have recognized, the look of a man who'd built an empire by trusting his instincts. "Have the medication sent to 3 different labs. I want full chemical analysis by the end of the week." Marcus's face paled slightly. "If you insist." "I do." Khalid turned his attention back to Layla, who watched the exchange with quiet intensity. "What's your name, little one?" "Layla," she whispered. "Layla." He tested the name. "That means night in Arabic, doesn't it?" She nodded. "But you brought light," he said softly. "Didn't you?" The little girl smiled then, tentatively, and it was like sunrise breaking over the gulf. "You're going to be okay," she said again. "I know it." Fatima pulled Layla toward the door, apologizing profusely. But Khalid raised a hand, stopping them. "Don't apologize," he said, "and don't keep her away." He looked at his nurse. "Marcus, arrange for security to give Mrs. Hassan and her daughter full access to the 3rd floor. They're not prisoners here." "But, sir—" "That's an order." After they left, Khalid sat alone, staring at the tray of medications. The green capsule seemed to pulse with sinister significance now. How had a 6-year-old child seen what trained medical professionals had missed, what everyone had missed, or had they? That night, he didn't take the green pill. For the first time in 6 months, he skipped it. Marcus argued, cautioned, warned of interrupting the treatment protocol, but Khalid was unmoved. "Send it to the labs tomorrow," he repeated. "All of it, every single green capsule we have." He lay awake that night, his mind racing in a way it hadn't in over a year. Outside, the Persian Gulf whispered against the shore, and somewhere in the servants' quarters, a 6-year-old girl slept peacefully, unaware that she had just set in motion events that would shake the Al-Rashid Empire to its foundations. Because if the medication was wrong, if it was making him worse instead of better, that meant someone had made a terrible mistake. Or worse, someone hadn't made a mistake at all. The laboratory results arrived on a grey Monday morning, delivered by courier in 3 separate sealed envelopes. Khalid had them brought to his suite immediately, dismissing Marcus with a curt nod that left no room for argument. His hands trembled slightly as he broke the first seal, not from weakness, but from something he hadn't felt in 18 months, anticipation. Dr. Yusuf Mansour arrived within the hour. The 60-year-old pharmacologist had been Khalid's father's personal physician before the elder Al-Rashid's death 5 years ago, and he was one of the few people Khalid still trusted completely. He entered the suite with his worn leather medical bag and kind, weathered face that had seen too much suffering to be shocked by anything. You sounded urgent on the phone, Dr. Mansour said, settling into the chair across from Khalid's wheelchair. What's this about independent testing? Khalid handed him the 3 envelopes. Tell me what you see. Dr. Mansour extracted the reports, his eyes scanning the dense medical terminology and chemical breakdowns. His expression shifted from curious to concerned to horrified in the space of 30 seconds. He read each report twice, then looked up at Khalid with barely contained fury. Where did you get this medication? He asked quietly. Dr. Raymond Hammond prescribed it 6 months ago. He called it a neural regeneration supplement. This is no supplement. Dr. Mansour's voice was tight. Khalid, this compound contains a nerve-blocking agent, not a regenerative one, a blocking one. He tapped the reports. All 3 independent labs confirm it. This medication isn't helping your recovery. It's actively preventing it. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Preventing it, Khalid repeated, his mind working through the implications. I mean that whatever natural healing your body might have achieved over the past 6 months has been chemically suppressed. Dr. Mansour's hands shook slightly as he set down the papers. This compound creates temporary paralysis in damaged neural pathways. It's sometimes used in very specific surgical procedures, in controlled doses, for a few hours at most. But taking it daily, for months. He shook his head. It's like putting poison in a wound and expecting it to heal. Khalid felt something cold and dark unfurl in his chest. Who would do this? That's the question, isn't it? Dr. Mansour met his eyes. Who prescribed this? Who benefits from keeping you paralyzed? The answer crystallized in Khalid's mind with terrible clarity. His uncle Faisal had assumed control of Al-Rashid shipping after the accident. Temporary control, supposedly, until Khalid recovered. But if Khalid never recovered? How long until it leaves my system? Khalid asked. The reports suggest a half-life of 48 to 72 hours. If you stop taking it... Dr. Mansour paused. When did you stop taking it? 4 days ago. Dr. Mansour's eyebrows rose. What made you stop? Khalid thought of Layla, her small finger pointing her absolute certainty. Intuition, he said, or something close to it. Then there's hope. Dr. Mansour leaned forward. With the compound clearing your system and proper physical therapy, you might regain sensation. I can't promise full recovery. The original injury was severe. But Khalid, you might walk again. You might have walked months ago if not for this poison. The rage that filled Khalid then was pure and focused, the first strong emotion beyond despair that he'd felt since the accident. Someone had done this to him. Someone had kept him imprisoned in his own body, had stolen months of his life, had nearly destroyed his future, and all for control of a company, for money, for power. I want to see Dr. Hammond, Khalid said. Today. I'll arrange it, but Khalid... Dr. Mansour's expression was grave. If this was deliberate, if someone is trying to keep you incapacitated, you need to be careful, very careful. They've already shown they're willing to destroy your health. What else might they do if they realize you know? After Dr. Mansour left, Khalid sat in silence, his mind racing through 18 months of memories. Uncle Faisal visiting weekly, always with papers to sign. Decisions that couldn't wait. Dr. Hammond, recommended by Faisal, taking over his care with reassuring confidence. Marcus, hired through an agency that Faisal had suggested. How deep did the betrayal go? A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Al-Rashid? Fatima's tentative voice came through. I'm here to clean, if this is a good time. Come in. Fatima entered with her cleaning supplies, Layla trailing behind her like a small shadow. The child's eyes found Khalid immediately, and she smiled, that same sunrise smile that seemed to light the entire room. Layla, Khalid said, and the little girl approached without hesitation, her mother's worried protests falling silent. I want to thank you. For what? Layla asked, tilting her head. foreseeing what no one else could see. You were right about the medicine. It was making me worse. Layla nodded as if this was obvious. I know. The green one was wrong. It felt wrong. How did you know? Khalid asked softly. How could you tell? The child frowned, struggling to explain something she didn't fully understand herself. I just feel things sometimes. Like when Mama is sad, but pretending to be happy, or when our neighbor's cat was sick inside even though she looked okay outside. I feel it here. She pressed a small hand to her chest, like a knowing. Fatima had gone very still, her face pale. Layla, Habibi, you shouldn't bother Mr. Al-Rashid with... She's not bothering me. Khalid studied the child with new interest. This happens often? You feel things about people? Layla shrugged. Sometimes. Mama says I have too much imagination. Or maybe you have too much truth, Khalid said quietly. He looked at Fatima. Has she always been this way? Fatima hesitated, then nodded. Since she was very young. 3 years old, maybe. She told my mother about a heart problem before any symptoms appeared. Saved her life. She paused. Most people think she's strange. That's why I don't talk about it. Strange? Khalid shook his head. She might have just saved my life too. He reached out, and after a moment, Layla placed her small hand in his. Thank you, Layla. Truly. The child's smile widened. Then she said something that made Khalid's blood run cold. The tall man with the silver watch doesn't want you to walk. He's scared. Khalid's breath caught. What tall man? The one who comes on Tuesdays. He has a silver watch and he smells like smoke and he thinks very loud. Layla's face scrunched up. His thinking is angry and scared together. Uncle Faisal came on Tuesdays. He wore a silver Patek Philippe watch worth more than most people's houses, and he smoked Cuban cigars in the mansion's library. Layla, stop this, Fatima said firmly, fear creeping into her voice. These are not things to say about... It's all right, Khalid interrupted, his mind working furiously. Layla, this man, has he ever been in this room when you felt these things? The child nodded. Last Tuesday, I was in the hallway with Mama, and he walked past and I felt it like thunder before rain, scary and heavy. Fatima looked mortified. Sir, I apologize. Children have such wild... What if she's right? Khalid said quietly, looking at the mother. What if everything she said has been right? The question hung in the air. Fatima's eyes widened as understanding dawned, understanding of what it meant if her daughter truly could sense things, and what danger that might bring. We should go, Fatima whispered, gathering her supplies. Come, Layla. Wait. Khalid's voice stopped them at the door. Fatima, I want you and Layla to stay close. To this floor. To me. I'm going to be making changes, and I need people around me I can trust. He paused. I think you might be the only people in this house I can trust. Fatima met his eyes, and in that moment an understanding passed between them. Two people who'd learned that the world could be cruel and deceptive, united by a 6-year-old child who saw too much truth. We'll stay, she said softly. That afternoon, Dr. Hammond arrived at the mansion with his usual professional confidence and designer briefcase. Marcus had called him at Khalid's request, mentioning only that the patient wanted to discuss his treatment plan. Khalid received him in the third-floor study rather than his bedroom, a subtle shift in dynamic. He'd positioned his wheelchair behind the mahogany desk, his father's desk, reclaiming a position of power he'd abandoned for too long. Khalid, good to see you taking an interest in your care, Dr. Hammond said warmly, settling into the leather chair across from him. He was 52, silver-haired, with the kind of polished charm that came from years of dealing with wealthy patients. Marcus mentioned you wanted to review your medications? I want to review one medication specifically, Khalid said. The green capsule. The neural regeneration supplement you prescribed 6 months ago. Ah, yes. It's a cutting-edge compound, very promising for... What's in it? Dr. Hammond blinked. I'm sorry. What's in the medication, specifically, chemically? A flicker of something crossed the doctor's face. Was it concern? Calculation? Well, it's a proprietary blend. Several compounds working in synergy to... Khalid slid the 3 laboratory reports across the desk. The color drained from Dr. Hammond's face as he recognized what he was seeing. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the papers, his eyes darting across the chemical analyses. When he looked up, his expression had shifted from confident to cornered. "Where did you get these?" he asked, his voice tight. 3 independent laboratories, all came to the same conclusion. Khalid leaned forward. "You've been poisoning me, Dr. Hammond. For 6 months, you've been actively preventing my recovery. The question is, why?" This is absurd." Hammond started to stand. "Sit down." Khalid's voice cracked like a whip, carrying an authority that made the older man freeze. "You will sit and you will tell me the truth, or I will have security detain you and call the police. Your choice." Dr. Hammond sank back into his chair, his polished facade crumbling. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "You don't understand the situation. Then explain it." A long moment of silence. Then Hammond's shoulders sagged in defeat. "It was Faisal," he said quietly. "Your uncle. He approached me 8 months ago before I even began treating you. He offered me $2 million to ensure your recovery was delayed." The admission hung in the air like a death sentence. "He said it was temporary," Hammond continued, words spilling out now in a desperate rush. "Just until certain business transitions could be completed. He said you'd be fine eventually, that it was just postponing things. I didn't think..." His voice cracked. "I never meant for it to go this long. I kept telling him it needed to stop, but he said just 1 more month, 1 more month." $2 million, Khalid repeated softly. "That's what my legs were worth to you? My life? I'm sorry." "Sorry." Khalid's laugh was bitter. "You destroyed 6 months of my life for money, and you're sorry." "If you go to the police, I'll lose everything," Hammond pleaded. "My license, my reputation." "You should have thought of that before you became a poisoner." Khalid picked up his phone. "Marcus!" The nurse appeared in the doorway within seconds. "Escort Dr. Hammond out," Khalid said coldly. "He's no longer my physician. He's no longer welcome in this house." As Marcus led the pale, trembling doctor toward the door, Khalid added, "And Hammond, if you warn my uncle about this conversation, if you do anything except disappear quietly, those laboratory reports go to the police, the medical board, and every news outlet in Dubai. Am I clear?" Hammond nodded mutely and was gone. Alone again, Khalid stared out at the Persian Gulf, his hands clenched on the armrests of his wheelchair. Faisal, his own uncle, his father's brother, family. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain. But now he knew, and now he could plan. A soft knock at the door. Layla peeked her head in, her brown eyes solemn. "The scared man is gone," she said quietly. "His thunder went away." Khalid managed a smile. "Yes, little one, he's gone." "Good." Layla stepped fully into the room. "Now you can start getting better. I can feel it. You're already stronger than yesterday." And the strange thing was, Khalid thought she might be right. Since stopping the green capsules, he'd felt different. Not healed, not yet, but different. As if his body was waking up from a long, drugged sleep. "Thank you, Layla," he said, "for everything." She smiled her sunrise smile. "You're welcome. Want to know a secret?" "Always." Layla leaned close and whispered, "You're going to walk again. I saw it. Saw it. Like a vision. Like a knowing," she corrected. "The same kind that told me about the green medicine. You're going to walk, and you're going to be happy again, and you're going to do something really important." She tilted her head. "I don't know what yet, but it's something big." Khalid felt tears prick his eyes for the first time in months, tears not of despair, but of something uncomfortably close to hope. "I hope you're right." I'm always right about the important things, Layla said, with the absolute confidence of childhood. Then she skipped out of the room, leaving Khalid alone with his thoughts, his rage, and his newfound determination. Outside, the sun set over the Persian Gulf, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. And in the shadows of the Al-Rashid mansion, plans within plans began to unfold, set in motion by the simple truth of a 6-year-old girl who felt too much. The real battle was only beginning. 3 weeks passed before Khalid felt the first tingling sensation in his left foot. It happened during a Tuesday morning physical therapy session with a new therapist, one recommended by Dr. Mansour, not by Uncle Faisal. Khalid was attempting a standing transfer when he felt it. A spark, a whisper of sensation, like static electricity dancing across his skin. He gasped, and the therapist immediately lowered him back to the wheelchair. "What's wrong? Pain?" "No," Khalid breathed, staring at his legs as if seeing them for the first time. "I felt something. My foot. I actually felt my foot." The therapist's eyes widened. "That's excellent news. The nerve regeneration is beginning." She made notes on her tablet. "We'll increase the intensity of your exercises. If sensation is returning, we need to capitalize on it." Khalid barely heard her. His mind was racing. Layla had been right. Again. The little girl who had wandered into his room 4 weeks ago had set everything in motion. The testing, the discovery, the hope. And now, impossibly, her prediction was coming true. He was getting better. That same Tuesday afternoon, Uncle Faisal arrived for his weekly visit, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his silver Patek Philippe glinting in the sunlight. He carried his usual leather portfolio stuffed with documents, requiring Khalid's signature and a box of Cuban cigars for afterward. "Khalid, my boy." Faisal greeted him warmly, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "You look better. More color in your cheeks." "I feel better," Khalid said carefully. He'd spent 3 weeks planning this moment, preparing every word, every expression. "Dr. Mansour has adjusted my medications. I'm responding well." A flicker of something crossed Faisal's face. Concern, fear. It vanished so quickly Khalid might have imagined it. "Dr. Mansour? What happened to Dr. Hammond?" "He's one of the finest neurologists in—" "He made some errors in my treatment," Khalid interrupted smoothly. "I decided a fresh perspective was needed." "I see." Faisal set down his portfolio, his movements precise. "Well, if you're improving, that's wonderful news. Though I must say, changing doctors without consulting the family seems rather impulsive." "My health, my decision." Of course. Faisal pulled out the documents. "Now, about the Singapore expansion. I need your signature on these contracts by Friday, or we'll lose the opportunity. I'll need to review them first," Khalid said. "Thoroughly." Faisal's smile tightened. "Khalid, we've been through this. You know I have your best interests." "I'm sure you do," Khalid said, his tone pleasant but firm. "Which is why you won't mind if I take my time." The tension in the room thickened. Faisal studied his nephew with new wariness, as if sensing a shift in power dynamics he couldn't quite identify. "You seem different," he said slowly. "More engaged. Perhaps I'm tired of being a ghost in my own life." "Understandable." Faisal gathered his papers. "I'll leave these with you then. Take your time." He paused at the door. "You know your father trusted me to protect this family's interests. Everything I've done has been for Al-Rashid shipping, for our legacy." "I know exactly what you've done," Khalid said quietly. Faisal's hand froze on the doorknob. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm paying attention now." Khalid met his uncle's eyes steadily. "To everything." After Faisal left, Khalid found Layla in the hallway, pressed against the wall, her small face pale. Fatima was beside her, looking equally shaken. "You felt it too," Khalid said, addressing the child. Layla nodded. "His thunder got bigger, louder. He's really scared now." She looked up at Khalid with worried eyes. You should be careful. Scared people do bad things. I will be careful, Khalid promised, but I need you to do something for me, Layla, both of you. He looked at Fatima. I need you to tell me if anyone else in this house feels wrong, like the medicine felt wrong. Fatima's hands twisted together nervously. Sir, this is dangerous. If your uncle suspects, he already suspects something, Khalid said, but he doesn't know what. He doesn't know about the lab reports, doesn't know Hammond confessed. He's operating blind. He paused. I need to know who else might be working with him, who else I can't trust. Layla closed her eyes, her small face scrunching in concentration. When she opened them, she said, The medicine man who gives you pills, Marcus. He has quiet thunder. Not loud like the Silver Watchman, but it's there, like he's hiding something. Khalid's jaw tightened. Marcus. He'd suspected as much. Anyone else? The lady who brings food sometimes, the one with yellow hair. She feels slippery, like soap. Layla tilted her head, but not dangerous, just not honest. The cook's assistant, likely pilfering expensive ingredients to sell. Minor compared to attempted murder by medication. Thank you, Layla. Khalid reached out and squeezed her small hand. You're helping me more than you know. Over the following days, Khalid began to quietly restructure his world. He terminated Marcus's employment, replacing him with a nurse from Dr. Mansour's clinic. He hired a private investigator to audit Al-Rashid Shipping's finances during his incapacitation. He consulted with lawyers about the requirements for reclaiming active control of the company, and through it all, sensation continued to return to his legs. First tingles, then dull pressure, then actual feeling. By the end of the 4th week since stopping the poison, he could flex his toes. By the 5th week, he felt the therapist's touch on his calves. This is remarkable, the new therapist said during their session. Unprecedented, really. Your recovery rate suggests the damage was never as permanent as initially believed. Because it wasn't damage, Khalid said grimly. It was suppression. Layla visited him daily now, often sitting in the corner of his study while he worked through documents, her presence oddly comforting. She would color in her workbooks or play quietly with a set of building blocks he'd purchased for her, occasionally offering observations that were far too insightful for a 6-year-old. You're planning something big, she said one afternoon, looking up from her coloring book. I can feel it, like a storm building. Khalid set down the financial report he'd been reviewing, a report showing millions of dollars in questionable transfers during his incapacitation. Is that wrong? The planning? Layla considered this seriously. Not wrong, but scary. The thunder around you is getting bigger too. I'm going to confront my uncle, Khalid admitted. Soon. I'm gathering evidence of what he's done, not just to me, but to the company. He's been embezzling, Layla, stealing from our family business while I was too drugged to notice. Will you send him to jail? If I can prove it, yes. Layla nodded slowly. He deserves it. He hurt you on purpose. She looked down at her coloring. But Mama says revenge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Khalid smiled despite himself. Your mother is wise, but this isn't just revenge. It's justice. There's a difference. What's the difference? Revenge is about making someone suffer because they made you suffer. Justice is about making sure they can't hurt anyone else. Khalid wheeled closer to her. Your mother is right to worry, though. This could be dangerous. I know. Layla met his eyes. That's why I'm going to help. Layla, no. I can feel when people are lying, she said simply. When you talk to the Silver Watchman again, I can tell you if he's being honest. Mama taught me in Cairo. She had me meet her boss before she took the job. I told her he was a good man, and he was. He paid her extra when grandmother got sick. She smiled. I can help. I want to help. Fatima appeared in the doorway, having heard the conversation. Absolutely not. Layla, this is not a game. I know it's not a game, Mama. The little girl's face was solemn. But Mr. Khalid is our friend, and friends help each other. Your daughter has a point, Khalid said gently. Fatima, I would never put Layla in direct danger, but having her present during my confrontation with Faisal at a distance where she can observe safely might give me an advantage I desperately need. And if things go wrong, Fatima's voice shook, if he realizes she can sense his lies, then I'll protect her, Khalid said firmly. With my life if necessary, I swear it. Fatima looked between Khalid and her daughter, her expression torn. Finally, she sighed. If Layla is even uncomfortable for one moment, we leave. Immediately. Agreed. The confrontation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Khalid spent the intervening days working with his lawyers and investigators, building an airtight case. The evidence was damning. Forged signatures, unauthorized transfers, inflated contracts with shell companies that led back to Faisal's personal accounts. In total, nearly $30 million had been siphoned from Al-Rashid shipping during Khalid's incapacitation. On Tuesday morning, Khalid woke with sensation in both legs from hip to toe. He could wiggle his toes, flex his ankles, tense his thigh muscles. He couldn't walk yet. His muscles had atrophied from 18 months of disuse, but the nerves were alive, firing, healing. Dr. Mansour examined him with barely contained excitement. Another month of intensive therapy, maybe 2, and you might be able to stand, to walk with support. This is miraculous, Khalid. It's justice, Khalid corrected. This is what should have happened a year ago if someone hadn't decided to play God with my life. That afternoon, Uncle Faisal arrived as usual, silver watch gleaming, leather portfolio in hand. But this time, he found Khalid waiting in the formal sitting room on the main floor, a room that required no wheelchair access, forcing Faisal to wheel his nephew personally, a subtle reminder of the vulnerability Faisal had helped create. A change of scenery, Khalid said pleasantly. I thought it was time. Layla and Fatima were positioned in an adjacent room, the door slightly ajar, with clear line of sight, but safely removed from the confrontation. Khalid had instructed Layla to observe silently, to feel what she could feel, and to leave immediately if threatened. Before we discuss business, Khalid began once Faisal was seated, I have something to show you. He placed a folder on the coffee table between them. Faisal opened it, his expression curious. Then his face went white as he recognized the contents. Bank statements, transfer records, signed confessions from shell company executives who'd agreed to testify in exchange for reduced charges. What is this? Faisal asked, his voice carefully controlled. Evidence, Khalid said calmly, of systematic embezzlement. $30 million over 18 months. Your signatures, your accounts, your conspiracy. This is absurd. Is it? Khalid leaned forward. Because I have 3 forensic accountants who disagree. I have executives willing to testify. I have documentation that would stand up in any court in Dubai. Faisal's composure cracked. You have no idea what you're talking about. The company needed those funds for what? Your villa in Monaco? Your mistress's apartment in Paris? Your gambling debts in Macau? Khalid's voice was steel. I know everything, Uncle. Everything. In the adjacent room, Layla whispered to her mother, his thunder is exploding. He's terrified and angry and... She paused, her small face troubled, thinking about something bad, really bad. Fatima's hand tightened on her daughter's shoulder. Back in the sitting room, Faisal had stood, pacing now, his polished facade completely shattered. You self-righteous child, you think you understand business? Your father built this empire through hard choices, ruthless choices. I've done what was necessary. You tried to keep me paralyzed, Khalid said quietly. You paid my doctor to poison me. Faisal froze. I don't know what you... Dr. Hammond confessed. I have his statement on record. Khalid's eyes were cold. You paid him $2 million to keep me drugged and helpless while you stole my inheritance, my father's legacy, everything he built. Your father was weak. Faisal spat, his true colors finally showing. Too soft, too concerned with ethics and reputation. I made Al-Rashid shipping what it really is, profitable, powerful, feared. You would have run it into the ground with your modern ideas and worker benefits and environmental concerns. So you tried to eliminate me. I tried to wait you out. Faisal's hands shook. The doctors said you'd never walk again anyway. I just accelerated the inevitable, made sure you stayed manageable while I secured our future. Manageable. Khalid's voice was ice. You poisoned your own nephew, stole from your own family, and you call it management. What are you going to do? Faisal's eyes narrowed. Call the police? They're not going to believe. They don't have to believe me. The evidence speaks for itself. Khalid pulled out his phone. I have two options for you, Uncle. Option 1, you surrender yourself to authorities, confess fully, and face justice. If you cooperate, maybe you'll see freedom again before you die. And option 2, I release everything to the media, the business community, the police, and every regulatory agency in the UAE. Your name becomes synonymous with betrayal. Your children live with that shame. Your grandchildren inherit nothing but disgrace. Faisal's face twisted with rage and desperation. His hand moved to his jacket pocket, and in the adjacent room, Layla gasped. Mama, he has something. Something metal. Something that hurts people. Fatima didn't hesitate. She ran into the sitting room. Khalid, he has a gun! Faisal spun toward her voice, his hand now fully inside his jacket, but Khalid was faster. He grabbed a heavy crystal paperweight from the side table and hurled it with all his strength. It struck Faisal's wrist with a sickening crack. Faisal screamed, and a small pistol clattered to the floor. Security burst through the doors. Khalid had stationed them nearby, suspecting his uncle might react violently. They tackled Faisal before he could reach the weapon, pinning him to the expensive carpet while he shouted threats and curses. Call the police, Khalid said calmly, though his heart was racing. Tell them we have a confession of embezzlement and attempted murder, and tell them to hurry. As security dragged a struggling Faisal away, Khalid looked toward the door where Fatima stood with Layla in her arms. The little girl's face was buried in her mother's shoulder, her small body trembling. It's over, Khalid said gently. You're safe. Both of you. Layla lifted her head, tears streaming down her face. His thunder was so loud, she whispered. It hurt. I know, Khalid said, but it's quiet now. He can't hurt anyone anymore. That night, after the police had taken their statements and removed Faisal in handcuffs, after the lawyers had assured Khalid that the case was airtight and the company secure, Khalid sat alone in his study with a single thought echoing through his mind. A 6-year-old child had saved his life multiple times. And now, with sensation returning to his legs and his uncle arrested, he finally had the chance to reclaim everything he'd lost. But more than that, he had the chance to become something better than he'd been before the accident. Someone who valued intuition over logic, trust over suspicion, the quiet wisdom of a child who saw truth where others saw only shadows. In her room, Layla slept peacefully for the first time in days, her mother beside her. And in her dreams, she saw Khalid walking, not just walking, but running free and whole and happy. The knowing told her it would come true, and the knowing was never wrong. 2 months after Uncle Faisal's arrest, Khalid stood for the first time. It happened on a Wednesday morning in the mansion's private gym, with Dr. Mansour and 2 physical therapists flanking him, their hands ready to catch him if he fell. His legs trembled violently under his weight, muscles screaming from months of atrophy, but they held. For 10 glorious seconds, Khalid al-Rashid stood on his own 2 feet. When he finally sank back into the wheelchair, exhausted and drenched in sweat, he found Layla watching from the doorway, her brown eyes shining with tears. "I told you," she said simply, "I told you that you would walk." "Not quite walking yet," Khalid said with a breathless laugh. "But it's a start." "It's more than a start," Dr. Mansour corrected, his weathered face beaming with pride. "It's a miracle. Khalid, at this rate you could be walking independently within 3 months, perhaps less." The news spread through the mansion like wildfire. Staff, who'd watched their employer waste away for 18 months now, witnessed his resurrection with a mixture of awe and relief. Some whispered that it was divine intervention. Others credited Dr. Mansour's expertise. But everyone in the household knew the real truth. It had started with a 6-year-old girl who saw what no one else could see. Khalid threw himself into physical therapy with the same intensity he'd once brought to building his business empire. 3 hours every morning, 2 hours every afternoon, pushing his body past pain, past exhaustion, past the limits everyone said were possible. His legs grew stronger day by day, muscle returning where there had been only wasted tissue. But physical recovery was only part of his transformation. With Uncle Faisal behind bars awaiting trial, Khalid reclaimed control of Al Rashid Shipping. The company was in chaos. Faisal's embezzlement and mismanagement had left gaping holes in operations, demoralized staff, and suspicious partners. Khalid had to rebuild trust from a wheelchair, conducting video conferences from his study, reviewing documents late into the night, making decisions that would determine the company's survival. It was during one of these late-night work sessions that Layla wandered in, unable to sleep. She climbed into the armchair across from his desk, curling up like a kitten, watching him with those two knowing eyes. "You're working too hard," she said softly. "Your body needs rest to get strong." "The company needs me," Khalid replied, not looking up from his laptop. "If I don't fix what Faisal broke, hundreds of people lose their jobs." "Oh, but if you break yourself, who fixes that?" Khalid paused, meeting her gaze. Even at 6 years old, she had a way of cutting through his justifications to uncomfortable truths. "When did you become so wise?" "Mama says I was born knowing things." Layla tilted her head. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." Why are you so angry all the time now?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "I'm not angry." "Yes, you are." Layla's voice was matter-of-fact, not accusatory. "Your thunder is different than before. Before, when you couldn't walk, you were sad thunder. Now you're angry thunder, even when you smile." Khalid set down his pen, considering his words carefully. "Your uncle, your family member, tried to destroy you, betrayed you in the worst possible way. Wouldn't you be angry?" "I'd be sad," Layla said. "Sad that someone I loved was bad inside. But anger makes you sick, Mr. Khalid. It's like the green medicine. It poisons you from the inside." "What should I feel instead?" "Happy that you're getting better, grateful that you found out the truth, excited for what comes next." She smiled. "Those feelings make you strong. Anger just makes you tired." After Layla returned to bed, Khalid sat in the darkness of his study, her words echoing in his mind. She was right, he realized. He'd been so consumed with rage at Faisal's betrayal, so focused on revenge and restoration, that he'd forgotten to simply be grateful for his second chance at life. The next morning, he made a decision. "I want to establish a foundation," he told his lawyers during their weekly meeting. "The Layla Hassan Foundation for Medical Truth and Patient Advocacy will fund independent testing for patients who suspect medical malpractice, provide legal support for those fighting corrupt healthcare providers, and create awareness about the dangers of blind trust in medical authority." His chief counsel, a sharp-eyed woman named Nadia, raised her eyebrows. "That's quite ambitious and expensive." "I have the resources. What I nearly didn't have was the truth." Khalid's jaw set. "If one child hadn't spoken up, I'd still be paralyzed or dead." How many other patients are being poisoned, misdiagnosed, or mistreated because they don't have someone like Layla to see the truth? You're naming it after the housekeeper's daughter. I'm naming it after the girl who saved my life, Khalid corrected firmly, multiple times. When he told Fatima and Layla about the foundation that evening, the mother's eyes filled with tears. Sir, this is too much. You don't need to. I need to do something meaningful with this second chance, Khalid interrupted gently. Layla's gift shouldn't go unrecognized. And if we can help even one person avoid what I went through, it's worth every dirham. Layla was quiet, processing this information with her usual solemnity. Finally she asked, Will it help people who are sick and scared? Yes. Then I like it. She paused, but can you add something else? What's that? Help for kids whose parents are sick. Because when Mama was sad about grandmother being sick, I was scared too. Nobody helped me understand. Khalid felt something crack open in his chest, a wall he hadn't realized he'd built. That's brilliant, Layla. We'll add a family support program. Counseling, education, resources for children dealing with sick family members. The little girl beamed. Now it's perfect. As the weeks passed and Khalid's strength grew, so did his relationship with Layla and Fatima. They became his inner circle, his trusted confidants, the family that blood relations had failed to be. Fatima proved to have a sharp mind for business, often catching details in contracts that his lawyers missed. Layla, meanwhile, became his unofficial truth detector, sitting in on meetings and afterward telling him which executives were honest and which were slippery like soap. 3 months after Faisal's arrest, Khalid took his first independent steps. It happened in the mansion's garden at sunset, with only Fatima and Layla present. He'd insisted on privacy, terrified of failing in front of the staff, the therapists, the world. But with just the 2 people who'd proven they loved him unconditionally, he felt safe enough to try. Using parallel bars for initial support, Khalid pulled himself upright. His legs shook but held. Then, slowly, painfully, he moved his right foot forward, then his left. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Keep going, Layla called, clapping her hands. You're doing it. 4 steps, 5, 6. His muscles screamed, his balance wavered, sweat poured down his face, but he kept moving forward, driven by pure determination and the sound of Layla's excited encouragement. 10 steps total before his legs gave out. Fatima caught him, helping him back to the wheelchair, but Khalid was laughing. Actually laughing, deep belly laughs of pure joy that he hadn't experienced in nearly 2 years. I walked, he gasped. I actually walked. I knew you would, Layla said, hugging him tightly. The knowing is never wrong. That night, Khalid called an emergency board meeting. Via video conference, he addressed the 15 board members who'd been running Al Rashid shipping in his absence. Effective immediately, I'm resuming full operational control of the company, he announced. I'll be in the office Monday morning in person. The board members exchanged shocked glances. Khalid, that's wonderful news about your recovery, said Omar Al-Sayed, the oldest member, but perhaps a gradual transition would be more appropriate. I've been gradually transitioning for 3 months, Khalid interrupted. I've reviewed every decision, every contract, every financial report. I know exactly what state this company is in, and I know what needs to change. The transition is over. I'm back. There was silence, then nods of acceptance. They could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice. The old Khalid had returned, tempered by suffering but stronger for it. On Monday morning, Khalid walked into the Al Rashid shipping headquarters, using only a cane for support. The lobby fell silent as employees watched their CEO, who they'd last seen being carried out on a stretcher 18 months ago, stride across the marble floor, with his head held high. The applause started slowly, then built into a thunderous ovation. People stood at their desks, tears streaming down faces, cheering for a miracle they'd witnessed but hardly believed possible. Khalid's eyes stung as he waved, accepting their welcome, but his mind was on the little girl back at the mansion, probably coloring in her workbook, unaware of the revolution she'd started. His first act as reinstated CEO was to announce the Layla Hassan Foundation. His second was to implement a new company policy. Any employee concerned about their medical treatment could request independent testing at company expense, no questions asked. "We take care of our own," he told the assembled executives, "and we don't let anyone suffer in silence, dismissed or ignored." If I had learned that lesson earlier, I might have avoided 18 months of hell. But the truth was more complex than that. Without those 18 months, would he have met Layla? Would he have learned to value intuition and trust? Would he have discovered that the most powerful truths sometimes come from the smallest voices? The universe worked in mysterious ways. That evening, he returned home exhausted but exhilarated, his legs aching from a full day of walking. He found Layla in the garden, playing with a new set of building blocks he'd bought her, not the cheap plastic kind, but expensive wooden ones from Switzerland that could build elaborate structures. "How was your first day?" she asked, not looking up from her construction. "Exhausting, exciting, overwhelming." Khalid sat beside her on the grass, something he couldn't have done 3 months ago. "Thank you, Layla." "For what?" "For everything. For seeing the truth when no one else could. For being brave enough to speak up. For believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself." Layla finally looked up, her brown eyes serious. "You would have done the same for me." "Would I?" Khalid asked honestly. "I don't know who I was before the accident, before the poison, before you. I think I was someone who wouldn't have listened to a 6-year-old child. Someone too proud, too certain, too closed to possibilities. But now you're different." "Now I'm better," Khalid agreed. "Being broken gave me the chance to rebuild myself the right way." Layla smiled and returned to her blocks. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the Persian Gulf, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. In that moment, Khalid felt something he'd thought lost forever: peace. But peace, like silence, is often just the calm before something greater. That night, as Fatima tucked Layla into bed, the little girl said something that made her mother's blood run cold. "Mama, I had another knowing today." "About what, Habibti?" "About Mr. Khalid." Layla's face was troubled. "Something big is coming, something that will change everything again." "Good change or bad change?" "Both," Layla whispered. "Both at the same time." Fatima stroked her daughter's hair, trying to hide her worry. "Try not to think about it tonight. Tomorrow is soon enough for knowings." But after Layla fell asleep, Fatima stood at the window, staring out at the vast mansion that had become their home. Her daughter's gift had saved Khalid once. She prayed it wouldn't be needed again. Yet deep in her heart, she knew. The story was far from over. The most important chapter was yet to come. The something big Layla had sensed arrived on a rainy Thursday morning, 6 months after Khalid's return to Al Rashid Shipping. He was in his corner office on the 42nd floor, reviewing expansion proposals for their East African operations, when his assistant buzzed through. "Mr. Al-Rashid, there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chen." Khalid frowned. The name meant nothing to him. "What's it regarding?" "She says it's about your accident. The one 18 months ago." The pen in Khalid's hand froze mid-signature. His racing accident was a closed chapter, investigated, documented, ruled as driver error during a private track day. He'd been pushing his McLaren too hard on a wet curve, lost control, and crashed into a barrier at 140 kilometers per hour. Simple, tragic, done. "Send her in, doctor. Send." Chen was a slight woman in her mid-40s, with sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and an air of nervous determination. She clutched a worn leather briefcase like a lifeline as she entered his office. Mr. Al-Rashid, thank you for seeing me. Her accent was American, her handshake firm despite her visible anxiety. I know this is unexpected, but I have information about your accident that you need to hear. I'm listening. Dr. Chen sat, opened her briefcase, and pulled out a thick folder. I'm a mechanical engineer specializing in automotive failure analysis. 3 months ago, I was hired by an insurance company to review your accident for a liability case. She paused. What I found doesn't match the official investigation report. Khalid's pulse quickened. Go on. The official report states you lost control due to excessive speed on a wet track. But when I examined the wreckage, which was stored in an impound facility, I found evidence of mechanical tampering. She pulled out photographs. Your brake lines had been partially severed. Not enough to fail immediately, but enough to fail under sustained high-speed braking. Someone wanted it to look like an accident. The room seemed to tilt. Khalid stared at the photographs showing his McLaren's undercarriage, the brake lines clearly damaged in a way that looked deliberate, intentional, calculated. Someone tried to kill me, he said quietly. Yes. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. The original investigators either missed it or, she hesitated, were told to miss it. Why come to me now? Why not go to the police? I tried. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. I filed a report with Dubai police 3 weeks ago. It was dismissed as inconclusive. Then I received a visit from 2 men who strongly suggested I drop my investigation. They knew where I lived, where my daughter goes to school. Fear flickered in her eyes. I'm a single mother, Mr. Al-Rashid. I can't protect my child if someone powerful wants to silence me. But I also can't stay silent about attempted murder. Khalid's mind raced. Someone had tried to kill him before Uncle Faisal's poisoning scheme. Someone who had the power to corrupt an official investigation. Someone who, the realization hit him like ice water. This happened before I was poisoned, he said slowly. 18 months ago. Uncle Faisal only started the medication scheme after I was already paralyzed from the crash. So there might be 2 separate conspiracies. Dr. Chen looked shaken, or one larger one. I need to think. Khalid stood, pacing to the window. Rain streaked the glass, distorting the view of Dubai's skyline. Dr. Chen, I'll have my security team ensure your protection. You and your daughter will be safe, I promise. But I need these files, and I need you to testify if it comes to that. Of course, she handed over the folder. There's something else. I found electronic evidence that suggests your car's systems were accessed remotely 2 days before the accident. Someone reprogrammed your traction control to disengage at high speeds. So, even if the brakes hadn't failed, the car would have been unstable. Exactly. Someone wanted you dead very badly, Mr. Al-Rashid. And they were sophisticated enough to plan multiple failure points. After Dr. Chen left, escorted by Khalid's personal security team to a safe location, Khalid sat alone in his office, staring at the damning photographs. His uncle's betrayal had been shocking, but this was different. This was premeditated murder, planned with cold precision by someone with technical knowledge and serious resources. Who else stood to gain from his death? His phone rang, Fatima's number. He answered immediately. Khalid, you need to come home. Her voice was tight with worry. It's Layla. She's having one of her episodes. Khalid had never driven so fast. He pushed his Bentley through Dubai traffic, his newly recovered legs working the pedals with desperate urgency. 20 minutes later, he burst through the mansion's front door to find Fatima in the living room, cradling a trembling Layla. The little girl's eyes were unfocused, tears streaming down her face. She was whispering something over and over in Arabic. What's she saying? Khalid asked, kneeling beside them. The thunder is coming back, Fatima translated, her own voice shaking. The first thunder, the car thunder. She looked at Khalid with terrified eyes. She's been like this for an hour. I don't know what triggered it. Khalid understood immediately. Layla's gift was showing her the past, his past, the accident that should have killed him. "Layla," he said softly, taking her small hand. "It's okay. I'm here. I'm safe." The child's eyes suddenly focused on him with laser intensity. "They wanted you to die in the car. They broke it, made it dangerous." Her voice was hollow, distant. "But you didn't die, so they had to try again with the green medicine." "Who, Layla? Who wanted me to die?" "The woman with cold eyes." Layla's face scrunched up, trying to process information her 6-year-old mind couldn't fully understand. "She's angry because you came back. She didn't plan for that." "What woman?" "I don't know her name, but she's close. Very close." Layla's eyes widened. "She's in your building, in your company. She's scared now because the car truth was found." Ice flooded Khalid's veins. Someone in Al-Rashid shipping had orchestrated his murder. Someone who was still there, still close, still dangerous. "Can you see what she looks like?" Layla closed her eyes, her small face tightening with concentration. "She's tall, dark hair. She wears suits with sharp shoulders. She has a ring with a blue stone. Layla's eyes flew open. "She sits in the room with the big table, the room where you meet with the important people. The boardroom. Someone on his board of directors." Khalid's mind spun through the 15 board members. 3 were women. Nadia Al-Fahad, his chief counsel. But she'd been his father's lawyer for 20 years, fiercely loyal. Rita Silverman, the CFO brought in by Faisal, possible, but she'd been cooperative in exposing Faisal's embezzlement. And Yasmin Aboud, VP of Operations, who'd been with the company for 12 years and wore a sapphire ring that had belonged to her grandmother. "Yasmin, are you certain?" he asked Layla gently. "This is very important." "I'm certain." Layla's voice was small but steady. "She has thunder like your uncle did, scared and angry together. And something else, something sharp and bright, like broken glass. Desperation. Yasmin was desperate." Khalid's phone buzzed. A message from his head of security. "Surveillance review complete. Someone accessed your office after hours last night. Used a master key card, registered to board member YA, Yasmin Aboud." "I need to go," Khalid said, standing. "Fatima, take Layla to the panic room. Lock it from inside. Don't open it for anyone but me or Dr. Mansour, understand?" "What's happening?" "Someone in my company tried to kill me 18 months ago. They might try again." He squeezed Fatima's shoulder. "Keep Layla safe. She's seen too much, knows too much. If they realize what she can do, we'll be safe," Fatima promised, though fear shone in her eyes. Khalid made 3 phone calls on his drive back to the office. First, to his head of security, ordering immediate surveillance on Yasmin Aboud. Second, to his private investigator, requesting a deep background check going back 20 years. Third, to Dubai police, requesting a meeting with the chief inspector about new evidence in his accident case. By the time he reached his office, the pieces were falling into place. Yasmin Aboud had joined Al-Rashid Shipping 12 years ago, recommended by a consulting firm. That firm, the PI discovered, was a shell company owned by a larger entity. That larger entity had board members who included Faisal Al-Rashid. Uncle Faisal and Yasmin had been connected all along. The security footage showed Yasmin entering Khalid's office at 11:47 p.m. the previous night. She'd spent 14 minutes there, focusing on his desk, his computer, his files. She'd been looking for Dr. Chen's report, which meant she knew someone had discovered the truth about the accident. Khalid was reviewing this evidence when Nadia, his chief counsel, rushed into his office without knocking. "Khalid, we have a problem. Yasmin just called an emergency board meeting. She's claiming you're mentally unstable, making paranoid accusations against loyal employees. She has 3 board members supporting her motion to remove you as CEO on medical grounds. How fast can you get the full board here?" "They're assembling now, 20 minutes." "Good." Khalid's voice was ice. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The boardroom on the 43rd floor was already tense when Khalid entered. Yasmin sat at the far end of the table, her posture rigid, her sapphire ring catching the light as she tapped her fingers nervously. 3 board members sat near her. All men Faisal had appointed, all with questionable loyalties. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Yasmin began, her voice smooth and professional. "I've called this meeting because I'm deeply concerned about our CEO's mental state. Mr. Al-Rashid has been making wild accusations, suggesting conspiracy theories about his accident, and creating a hostile work environment based on paranoid delusions." "Are they delusions?" Khalid interrupted calmly. He placed Dr. Chen's folder on the table. "Or are they documented facts?" Yasmin's confident mask slipped for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about mechanical evidence that my racing accident was actually attempted murder. I'm talking about brake lines that were deliberately sabered, computer systems that were remotely hacked, and an official investigation that was corrupted." Khalid opened the folder, spreading photographs across the table. "I'm talking about you, Yasmin." The room erupted. Board members leaned forward, examining the photos, voices rising in shock and confusion. But Khalid kept his eyes locked on Yasmin, watching her face cycle through emotions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, cold rage. "This is ridiculous," she said, but her voice wavered. "Why would I want to harm you?" Because you've been working with my uncle Faisal for over a decade. Your job was to destabilize the company from within, create opportunities for embezzlement, and eventually eliminate me so Faisal could claim sole control." Khalid stood, placing his hands on the table. "The accident was supposed to kill me. When it only paralyzed me, Faisal implemented Plan B, the poisoning. But you were always the architect, weren't you? The one with the technical knowledge to sabotage a car's computer systems? You have no proof. I have your master key card access to my office at 11:47 p.m. last night. I have financial records showing payments from Faisal's shell companies to your accounts. I have electronic evidence that the hack on my car originated from an IP address in this building, specifically from your office." Khalid's voice hardened. "And I have a witness who saw you planning my murder. It was a bluff. Layla hadn't literally seen planning, but Yasmin didn't know that. Something broke in her then. The professional mask shattered completely, revealing raw desperation underneath. You don't understand, she said, her voice rising. Your father destroyed my family. He bought our shipping company 20 years ago, dismantled it, left my father bankrupt and broken. He killed himself because of what your father did. The room fell silent. So this was revenge? Khalid asked quietly. This was justice. Yasmin slammed her hand on the table, her sapphire ring cracking against the wood. Faisal understood. He knew your father was a ruthless corporate raider who destroyed lives without remorse. We planned to take everything from you, the way your father took everything from my family. My father bought a failing company and offered your father a fair price, Nadia interjected, her lawyer's voice cutting through emotion with fact. I handled that acquisition. Every document was legal and ethical. Legal doesn't mean right, Yasmin spat. Your family's empire is built on the ruins of others. I wanted you to feel what my father felt, helpless, powerless, watching everything slip away. So you tried to murder me. Khalid's voice was steady. And when that failed, you helped poison me. You stole months of my life, nearly destroyed my future, all for a vendetta against a dead man. Yasmin's laugh was bitter. The great Khalid al-Rashid, brought low by a woman he never even noticed. Yes, I did it, and I'd do it again. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Several board members had already pulled out their phones, recording. Security appeared in the doorway, summoned by Nadia. Yasmin Aboud, Khalid said formally, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building, and the police will be waiting downstairs to arrest you for attempted murder and conspiracy." As security moved forward, Yasmin stood, her composure fracturing completely. "You think this is over? You think arresting me changes anything? You're just like your father, blind to the damage you cause, the lives you destroy." "No," Khalid said quietly. "I'm nothing like my father. Because I learned something during these 18 months that he never understood. Survival isn't about being the strongest or the most ruthless. It's about trusting the right people, hearing truth from unexpected sources, and knowing that real power comes from compassion, not conquest." Yasmin was led away, still shouting accusations, her voice echoing down the hallway until the elevator doors closed. In the aftermath, as board members processed what they'd witnessed, Khalid sank into his chair, suddenly exhausted. Two conspiracies, both aimed at his destruction, both exposed by a combination of evidence and one 6-year-old girl's impossible gift. His phone buzzed. A text from Fatima. "We're safe. Layla says the storm has passed. Is it over?" Khalid looked around the boardroom at the shocked faces of his board, thought about Uncle Faisal in prison and Yasmin on her way there, considered Dr. Chen and her daughter safe under his protection, and finally let himself believe it. He texted back, "Yes, it's finally over." But as he drove home that evening, watching the sun set over the Persian Gulf, Khalid realized something profound. The conspiracies hadn't just been attempts to destroy him, they'd been the catalyst for his transformation. Without them, he would never have met Layla, never learned to value intuition over logic, never understood that the smallest voice can carry the greatest truth. He'd lost 18 months of his life, but he'd gained something infinitely more valuable, a family, a purpose, and a second chance to build something meaningful. The knowing had been right all along. 1 year after Layla first whispered, "Don't take your medicine," Khalid al-Rashid stood in the grand ballroom of the Burj Al Arab, addressing 200 guests at the inaugural gala for the Layla Hassan Foundation. He stood without a cane, without support, completely on his own 2 feet. 18 months ago I was a different person," Khalid began, his voice carrying across the opulent space. "I was consumed by ambition, driven by numbers and profit margins, convinced that success meant dominance. Then I lost everything, my health, my mobility, my future. Or so I thought." In the front row, Layla sat between her mother and Dr. Mansour, wearing a beautiful blue dress that Khalid had insisted on buying her. At 7 years old now, she'd grown taller, but her eyes still held that same knowing quality that had saved his life. "What I actually lost," Khalid continued, "was the illusion that I controlled anything. And what I gained was infinitely more valuable. The wisdom to listen, the humility to accept help, and the knowledge that truth often comes from the most unexpected sources." He smiled at Layla, sometimes from a 6-year-old girl who simply knew things no one else could see. The audience applauded, but Khalid raised his hand for silence. "This foundation exists because of that little girl's courage, because she spoke up when silence would have been safer, because she trusted her instincts when logic said to stay quiet." His voice thickened with emotion. "The Layla Hassan Foundation will ensure that other patients have advocates, that medical truth isn't buried by corruption, and that families receive support when facing medical crises. We've already helped 43 patients in our first 6 months, exposing 3 cases of malpractice and saving countless lives." More applause, genuine and thunderous. Khalid waited for it to subside before delivering his final announcement. "But tonight, I want to share something personal." He gestured, and an image appeared on the screen behind him, legal documents bearing official seals. 3 months ago, I began adoption proceedings. And today, those proceedings were finalized. He looked directly at Layla and Fatima. "If they'll have me, I'd like to officially welcome Fatima and Layla Hassan into the Al-Rashid family." The ballroom erupted. Guests rose to their feet, applauding wildly. But Khalid's eyes were only on Layla, who'd gone very still, her small face a mixture of shock and dawning joy. Fatima was crying, her hands covering her mouth. Khalid descended from the stage and approached them, kneeling so he was eye level with Layla. "I know I can never replace your father," he said softly, just for her. "But if you'll let me, I'd be honored to be your family, to protect you, support you, and love you the way you deserve." He paused. "What do you say, little one?" Layla threw her arms around his neck, hugging him with all the fierce strength of childhood. "I knew," she whispered, "I knew you'd be my family someday. The knowing told me." Khalid held her close, feeling tears stream down his own face. Over Layla's shoulder he met Fatima's eyes, seeing the same overwhelming emotion reflected there. He extended his hand to her, and she took it, joining their embrace. "We're a family," Fatima whispered. "A real family." "We always were," Khalid replied. "This just makes it official." The celebration continued late into the night, but Khalid's favorite moment came hours later, after most guests had departed. He found Layla on the hotel's terrace, staring out at the illuminated Dubai skyline. "It's beautiful," she said as he joined her. "All the lights look like stars that came down to live with people." That's a lovely way to see it." Khalid stood beside her, marveling at how natural it felt. "Are you happy, Layla? Truly happy?" She considered the question with her usual seriousness. "Yes, but also a little scared." "Scared of what?" "That I'll lose you, that something bad will happen again." She looked up at him. "The knowing doesn't always show me good things. Sometimes it shows me scary things, and I don't know if I can stop them." Khalid knelt beside her. "Listen to me carefully. Your gift, your knowing, isn't a burden you have to carry alone anymore. Whatever you see, whatever you sense, you tell me. We face it together. That's what family means." "Mom, but what if I see something bad about you? What if—" "Then you tell me," Khalid said firmly, "just like you did with the green medicine. Even if it's hard, even if you're scared, you tell me, because I trust you, Layla. I trust your knowing more than I trust anything else in this world." She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, together." "Together," he confirmed. The next morning, Khalid, Fatima, and Layla returned to the mansion, but it felt different now. Not like an employer's house where Fatima worked, but like a home they all shared. Khalid had already converted the West Wing into private apartments for them, respecting their need for space while ensuring they remained close. "We need to discuss Layla's future," Fatima said over breakfast on the terrace. "Her education, her development. She's so bright, Khalid, but also so sensitive. Regular school has been difficult for her." What if she didn't go to regular school?" Khalid suggested. "We could hire private tutors, specialists who understand gifted children. Let her learn at her own pace, in an environment where her abilities are valued, not treated as oddities." "That's expensive, Fatima." Khalid took her hand gently. "You're my family now. There is no expense too great for Layla's well-being. Besides," he smiled, "investing in a child who can sense medical malpractice and corporate conspiracy seems like sound financial planning." Fatima laughed, and Khalid realized he'd never heard her laugh freely before. It was a beautiful sound, warm and genuine. Layla, meanwhile, was watching a hummingbird at the garden feeder, her expression distant. "The bird knows where the sweet water is," she said suddenly. "She doesn't think about it or wonder. She just knows, and she goes there." She looked at Khalid. "That's how my knowing feels. Like being a hummingbird who just knows where to go." "That's the perfect description," Khalid said softly. Over the following months, their new family found its rhythm. Khalid continued running Al Rashid Shipping with renewed purpose, focusing not just on profits, but on ethical practices and employee welfare. The Layla Hassan Foundation expanded rapidly, helping patients across the Middle East challenge medical corruption and malpractice. Fatima discovered she had a remarkable talent for foundation management, and Khalid officially hired her as the foundation's director of family services. She threw herself into the work, creating support programs that helped hundreds of families navigate medical crises. And Layla thrived. With private tutors who understood her unique gifts, she excelled in every subject, particularly science and languages. But more importantly, she remained the same kind, intuitive child who'd saved Khalid's life, just happier, more confident, secure in the knowledge that she was loved and valued. 6 months after the adoption, Khalid received an unexpected visitor at his office. Dr. Raymond Hammond, the physician who'd poisoned him, sat across his desk looking 10 years older than their last encounter. Prison had not been kind to him. "I'm out on parole," Hammond said quietly. "I wanted to apologize in person before I leave Dubai for good." "Go ahead. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed my oath, nearly destroyed your life, all for money." Hammond's hands shook. "I've lost everything. My license, my reputation, my family. But the worst part is knowing I hurt you, and that no punishment could ever balance that scale." Khalid studied the broken man before him. Once he would have felt satisfaction at seeing his enemy humbled. Now he felt only sadness for wasted potential and choices that couldn't be unmade. "I forgive you," Khalid said simply. Hammond's head jerked up. "What?" "I forgive you." Khalid leaned forward. "Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger would poison me worse than your medications ever did. You made terrible choices, and you're paying for them. That's justice. My forgiveness is for me, not for you. I don't understand. A wise 7-year-old told me that anger is like poison. It destroys you from the inside." Khalid smiled slightly. She was right about the green capsules, and she was right about that too. So I'm letting it go, Dr. Hammond. I'm choosing peace over vengeance. Hammond left with tears in his eyes, and Khalid felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. That evening, during dinner on the terrace, Layla suddenly set down her fork. "Something's coming," she said, her voice distant. Khalid and Fatima immediately tensed. "Something bad?" Fatima asked. "No." Layla's face broke into a smile. "Something wonderful, something that will make our family even bigger." She refused to elaborate, and Khalid learned not to push when her knowing was unclear. The answer came 3 weeks later when Dr. Mansour pulled Khalid aside after a routine checkup. "There's something I need to tell you," the old doctor said, his weathered face split by a grin. "Something I've been considering for months." "What is it?" "I'm retiring from my practice. I'm 72 years old, and it's time." He paused. "But I'd like to continue as your personal physician and as the chief medical advisor for the Layla Hassan Foundation. That is, if you'll have me." Khalid felt emotion well up in his throat. "Dr. Mansour, you've been like a father to me. Having you as part of our extended family would be an honor." "Good." Dr. Mansour's eyes twinkled. "Because that little girl of yours told me a month ago that I belonged with you all, said I had grandfather thunder, and that it matched your family's song." Khalid laughed. "She knew before you did." "She usually does," Dr. Mansour agreed. 1 year to the day after the adoption was finalized, Khalid organized a surprise for Layla. He'd noticed her sketching pictures of children playing together, asking questions about kids her age, and realized that despite all the tutors and attention, she was lonely for peer companionship. So he'd worked with a child psychologist to create something unprecedented, a specialized school for gifted and sensitive children, where Layla and others like her could learn together, understood and valued for their unique perspectives. He revealed it on her 8th birthday, taking her to the newly renovated building on the outskirts of Dubai. "It's a school," he explained as they toured the bright, welcoming spaces. "But not like any school you've been to. This is for children who are different, special. Children who see the world in unique ways. You'll have friends here, Layla. Friends who understand what it's like to know things others don't." Layla walked through the classrooms, the art studio, the sensory garden designed for children who felt too much. Her eyes shone with tears of joy. "Will you come visit me here?" she asked. "Every week," Khalid promised. "And you'll come home every day. This isn't sending you away. It's giving you a place where you can be completely yourself." She hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Baba." The word, Baba, father in Arabic, struck him like lightning. She'd never called him that before. "Say it again," he whispered. "Baba," she repeated, smiling up at him. "You're my Baba now." The knowing told me that too. On the drive home, with Layla chattering excitedly about the school, Khalid reflected on the impossible journey that had brought them here. From a paralyzed, bitter man who'd lost everything to this. A father, a leader, a man who'd learned that real strength wasn't about control, but about connection. That night, after tucking Layla into bed, Khalid stood on his bedroom balcony, looking out at the Persian Gulf. The same view he'd stared at for 18 months from his wheelchair, dreaming of a life he thought was over. But life had just been waiting for the right moment to begin. Fatima joined him on the balcony, slipping her hand into his. Their relationship had evolved over the months into something deeper than employer and employee, deeper than friends. They hadn't rushed it, both cautious after painful pasts, but the love was there, steady and true. "Happy?" she asked softly. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Khalid admitted. "A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be standing here, walking healthy, with a family I love more than anything, I would have thought them insane." "Layla knew," Fatima said with a smile. "She told me the first week we arrived that you would be her father someday. I thought she was just daydreaming. She's never wrong about the important things." "No," Fatima agreed. "She's not." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the moonlight on the water. Somewhere behind them, Layla slept peacefully, her knowing finally quiet, her small heart full of the security that comes from being truly, completely loved. And in that moment, Khalid understood the final truth that Layla had been trying to teach him all along. The greatest gift isn't wealth or power or even health. It's connection. It's family. It's the courage to trust in something you can't see, but somehow know is real, like a hummingbird finding sweet water. Like a child seeing truth in a world of lies. Like a broken man learning to walk again, one step at a time, guided by the smallest hand and the biggest heart he'd ever known. The knowing had brought them together, and the knowing would keep them strong forever.